Cost of living? Let's talk about it.
Bro, if I knew how bad the economy was gonna be up to date, I wouldn't have been riding no bikes, playing no video games. I would have bought a house when I was 10. They did a study based on today's economy. Like, what should minimum wage be based on today's economy to make sure an American is comfortable living a day to day life, like with the prices, how the prices is up to date. Bro, do you know how much they say you need to make an hour to be comfortable around this motherfucker? 66 fucking dollars an hour. $66 an hour, bro. Who the fuck making that? That ain't even the kicker. You make $66 an hour. You work 40 hours a week. At the end of the month, guess how much you gonna have in whole? 10 bands. Oh no, but don't think you taking the whole 10 bands. You forgot about Uncle Sam. You're going home with 6,500. Maybe a 7 ball if you lucky. Okay, so eliminate all the bills and life expenses from that 6,500. You left even motherfuckers who making $66 an hour after paying all their bills and life expenses at the end of the month. They only gonna be able to save a band or two a month. So regular motherfuckers like me and you was just cooked. We po. We just at this point we just on the internet seeing who can be po better. Who can be best at being po.
Bro's definitely not lying. I feel like a lot of Americans right now are struggling. They're feeling, I would say, a pinch on their money because even me, I feel like I live decent. I don't overspend. I don't have any debt. I live a good quality of life where I'm not living a paycheck to paycheck. I'm able to save money, invest money, things of that nature, right? But there are times I go to the store, right? I can go maybe get, let's say, 5 or 6 things, right? And I can spend easily $40, $50, right? I can go buy maybe a meal or two or three that'll maybe last me throughout the week, right? And maybe it's like, okay, I can maybe buy enough to where I could cook, enough to have leftovers, and therefore it lasts me a couple days, right? But even then, that'll cost me, let's say, again, maybe like $40, $50, right? And if I'm someone who also likes maybe fruit, vegetables, things like that, someone who wants to be a little bit healthy, right? Get my vitamins in by eating them or drinking smoothies and stuff like that, rather than, taking medicines, doing this, that, and the third, then again, that's also going to cost you even extra money because I don't know what's wrong or if anyone else has noticed it, but the cost of like produce and stuff like that has just gone through the roof, this year, 2025, right? So what he's talking about at living comfortably at $66 an hour, I mean, the average American is probably only making around, let's say, 20 something dollars an hour. I don't know for sure, but I would assume it's 20 something to $30 an hour. If you just look at maybe like the median, because a lot of people sometimes use averages, and averages, when you got those big outliers and stuff like that, can make the average bigger than what it actually is. If I had to put a guess on it, just because my job also involves me being out in the field, a lot and seeing everyday Americans, everyday people, seeing the everyday struggle and things of that nature, I would assume it's around 20 something to 30 something dollars, right? That would just be my guess. When you have, let's say, if you have any debts, and you got kids, you want to live a good wholesome life, things like that, you try to even save money and stuff, like it gets hard out here, even if you're working 40 plus hours a week, right? Because say, for example, you have a kid or your wife is pregnant or something like that, right? Speaking from a male's perspective, how are you going to, provide for the whole family? Because now you only may have one income coming in because now she can't work because she's pregnant, right? She has to take a step back from work, and if she doesn't have a remote job to where, okay, it makes it easier for her to bring in income, then hey, he's for sure on it though, because a lot of people are struggling, man, and I see it every day, and that's one thing that kind of pains me because I hate seeing pain, I hate seeing struggle, and I just see it so much on an everyday to day basis, man. But anyways, set yourself up and get your ducks in a row, man, to be able to give yourself the life that you want to live, right? Live comfortably, have some stability in your life, right? Not be living paycheck to paycheck, right? Not always feeling the urge of struggle, not always feeling just the penny pinching mindsets. Because sometimes it's like, man, you know what? You want to have that feeling of gratitude to where I've worked, and busted my ass, all week or did this or did that, right? I'm going to just enjoy the fruits of my labor, right? I'm not going to second guess this purchase I made, which I think a lot of people do. They second guess a lot of purchases. They make for the simple fact they're like, ah, man, like, what if I would have just spent this money paying off this, doing this, doing that, right? Try to put yourself in the best position to where you don't have to feel like that, right? You can feel like, okay, I did that because at least I know I also invested, I also saved, I also paid this off while doing this, right? So just simultaneously give yourself positive reinforcement. But anyways, let's get back to it.
I moved from the Midwest to the Pacific Northwest, where my cost of living is so much higher. I sold my home for $85,000 in the Midwest, and I bought a home for $815 in Pacific Northwest. Or let me tell you why I have more money now than I did in the Midwest. For all of y'all telling me that I need to pick it up and sell my house and move back to the Midwest, let me tell you why you are wrong. I made $39,000 in Illinois. I made $217,000 as a nurse last year in Portland, Oregon. My average gross income was $3,250. Minus my house payment of $530, that left me with $2,720 left gross. In Oregon, I made $217,000 last year. That totals a gross of $18,100 every single month. Minus my mortgage payment of $5,000, that leaves me with approximately $13,100 every single month to spend. Of course, that does not include taxes. $2,720 versus $13,100. I think I'll stay in the Pacific Northwest, thank you. I have 5 times the amount of disposable income.
All right. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much about the Pacific, the Midwest, or this or that. I'm not really, in tune with my geography like that. However, I do know I live in the South, right? I live in North Carolina, for anyone who doesn't know, right? But also, before I get into my thing, shout out to shout out to, I don't think she said her name or anything like that, but shout out to her, man. Her skin was glowing and everything like that. Go ahead and tell me your skin routine if you see this, But anyways, that's a perfect example of sometimes you may just have to pick up and move, to kind of get to where you want to get to in life, right? She said, some people say sell your house and move back. And she's like, no, like, look at the salary I make here, the income, X, Y, and Z, right? She's giving herself more opportunity to have a consistent, income. Also, she's giving herself more stability, right? She's giving herself a better opportunity to save, invest, do this, do that, right? Whereas when she was in Illinois, like she said, the cost of living versus what she was bringing in, it wasn't really giving her that same opportunity, right? The margins were a little bit thinner, right? Things were a little bit tighter. Now she's moved to the Pacific. I think she said, I want to say Midwest, that she has a higher cost, right, of living. However, she's also producing more income, right? So that's what happens, man. When you get into certain situations to where you want to start advancing your life, you have to start thinking of some of these things, right? You have to start thinking of, well, how can I generate more income? That sometimes includes moving, giving yourself that opportunity, right? That also may mean maybe getting a second job, right? Depending on if you can move or not, because sometimes people can't pick up their whole family and just skedaddle out of there, right? They have to make life decisions like that. So I will always say, do what's best for you and also what's best for giving you the best opportunity in life, right? Don't hinder yourself, whether it's a job, location, things of that nature, right? Because also, for all my young people out there, people who around my age, I'm 25, for people who don't know, who haven't watched my videos, don't be afraid to, especially if you don't have any kids, anything holding you back, maybe you have some family where you're at, X, Y, Z, right? But don't be afraid to just explore life, because I feel like if you put yourself in a position and give yourself the opportunity to live how you want to live, you can always migrate and find your way back to wherever you want to go, right? Like, for example, say I branch out of North Carolina because maybe some of my family's here, X, Y, Z, but I want to give myself a different shot of life, right? I want to see what's out there. I want to explore a little bit. I feel as if I will have no problem. Maybe it won't happen when I want it to, but I feel like it definitely will happen if I actually wanted to migrate back to North Carolina. I feel like the opportunity will be there, right? As long as I just continue to do what I'm doing, right? I will give myself and put myself in a position to where it's like, you know what? I'm gonna just move back to North Carolina. That's where my family is. That's where my friends are, X, Y, Z, and that's where home is. I just want to go back, right? And then start building my roots back here, right? I feel like that'll be no problem. So for anyone, just give yourself the best opportunity in life. Give yourself the best chance to be able to be flexible with the life that you want to live, right? And let's get back into it, man.
Bro, how are people making it? If you making $30 an hour, it's weird to ask that. But how are you making it? After you pay your rent, $1,500 a month, that's on the low side. Car note, $500 a month. Phone bill, $100 a month. Insurance, gas, food, electricity, health insurance, all these day-to-day expenses. How are people making it? You do the math and you come back and tell me what the numbers look like for you. Because a person can make $30 an hour and is going to struggle. I can only imagine making $15 an hour. You cannot live on that. No, you cannot. You cannot convince me otherwise. You cannot live on $15 or $30 an hour, or you're gonna stay broke. Convince me different.
Me personally, I think he's asking a lot of valid questions, right? He said, how are you going to live off $15 an hour, right? Because even at $30 an hour, it's a struggle to live. So I couldn't even imagine $15. I'm one of those people. I advocate for the minimum wage being $20 an hour, right? And that be adjusted depending on where you live, because you have places like New York and other big cities that the cost of living is just astronomically high, right? So it has to be adjusted to that, right? However, he was in line, right? Like, I think some of the prices he threw out were pretty reasonable, right? $1,500 for rent. I think that's pretty reasonable depending on where you're at, but I feel like that's a good number, right? $500 for a car note. I think the average is higher than that, $700 to $800, maybe $600. I don't know, right? But I feel like it's definitely higher than $500, right? For the average car note. You have car insurance, phone bill, things of that nature, like everyday living. And guess what? A lot of these companies and a lot of these businesses, X, Y, and Z, they want to get their profit, they want to meet their margins. So it's not like they're just going to decrease prices, right? They're going to continue to raise prices because they have people to answer to. They have shareholders, investors, whatever it is, right? So it's like, what is the middle ground here, especially with the economy being the way it is right now? Like, you have inflation just going through the roof, right? You have the dollar losing value every day, right? People don't have money for retirement. People aren't saving for retirement. There's a bunch of different things going on right now to signal like we need a lot of change, right? Because a lot of people are struggling, Now, there are a lot of people doing good in this economy, right? For example, I think I'm doing okay. However, I'm not also oblivious to the fact that the economy still is bad. I don't think the economy is necessarily good just because I'm doing good, right? Because I know where it was just some years ago. So when you equate it to that, I think there's a lot of people probably in the same position and boat as me. Like, they're doing okay. They're not necessarily feeling the same struggle as other people. However, that don't mean that they still aren't being a little bit tighter with their money, right? They're not being a little bit tighter of how they're spending their money and things of that nature, right? Because they are. Again, I will reiterate it for anyone, right? Just get your finances straight. If you don't know how much debt you have, figure out how much debt you have, right? If you don't know how much you're spending, just get a little bit of get a little, whatever budget app there is out there, right? You can go on the App Store and just look at different budget apps just to track every expense and every piece of income you have, right? And keep it real simple. Income, expenses, and just track each one of those. You don't even need some big Excel sheet, X, Y, and Z, some big calculator that some of these other people use. Just go out there and find something simple that works for you, so you have a good gist and good idea of how much you're spending and how much you have incoming, right? And then also do research, right? There's plenty of YouTube videos, X, Y, and Z out here. You don't need to go pay for them. So pay for some crazy expensive course, some money guru, financial expert, all these different things. Like me, I went on YouTube, I watch a bunch of different people, a bunch of different videos, get advice from different people who either gotten to where I want to get to, done what I want to done, things of that nature. That's all free game. You don't have to go spend a bunch of money to learn a bunch of things, right? Just put the time in, and use your time effectively. Like, if you say, okay, I don't have enough time in the day, well, what are you doing with the time that you do have? Because you can multitask. When I'm in the shower, there's sometimes I have one of the long videos playing that maybe are 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something like that. Therefore, okay, I don't have to necessarily sit down and watch that video. I could just listen and learn. And once you hear things enough, you kind of get the gist of certain things. You kind of get the repetition of it. You kind of see what certain people are saying. You see what things adding up. See what things could work for you, can't work for you, things of that nature, right? So again, get your ducks in a row, man. Get your finances straight. Figure out what you need to do, man, to build a better opportunity at life for you, right? But If you stuck with me this long, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for all the support. If you like the video as well, go ahead and smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well, because it's going to only help build this algorithm, right? I'm going to reiterate it. I want to build a community here. I want to build a channel to where people want to come watch me and want to come hear what I have to say, and they also want to give their opinions as well. So with that being said, don't forget to comment if there's anything that you want me to talk about. If you have anything to say as far as what I've said in this video. And with that being said, thanks till next time. See you again.